Okay, so we can begin. We started chapter 2, Perkei of Pirkei Avot, continuing according to the Seder, the order. The first Mishnah in the second chapter spoke about choosing a path in life. It said, Ezu derech yeshara. Derech means a path. But a path is not only a way of life, it's also a career, a job. It includes many, many things. One's conduct, one's dealing with the public, with people, is important too. That's also a derech. There are many drachim. There are various paths that people take upon themselves. Some are good, some are not so good. And the rabbis tell us that in choosing a path, we want to strive, of course, for the path to be derech yeshara, a direct path that will lead us to our destination, a path that will be a path of honesty, yashar. And the conditions for that, in order for that to be true, for it to be a true derech yeshara, it needs to comply with various conditions. And one of those is that it suits us, it pleases us, it looks right for us, and it looks right for others as well. In other words, everyone is set to gain from this. There's a benefit for all. Life is not only about doing something which is good for us. We need to consider everybody else's feelings. We need to consider issues that perhaps affect the lives of others. But the most important point, however, and that we must never forget, is that we are here to do Hashem's will. And in doing Hashem's will, we have to limit ourselves to a certain path. And what we would like or what we would prefer does not always mean that it's the right thing to do. So the rabbis direct us in choosing whether it's a career, or in choosing a friend, or in choosing a spouse, that we be careful to focus on what is really important, not necessarily what we subjectively think is right for us. So in the first Mishnah, there were certain criteria or certain ideas that if we focus on them, they would help us stay on the right path. They will help us stay out of trouble. As it says, Via tabali de avera, contemplate on those three things, that we're constantly being watched, that our deeds are being recorded, that everything is being heard. These are all ideas that the Chachamim stress. Not only these Mishnayot, but all over the Gemara. We have quite a few pieces of advice by the rabbis as to that one should recall continuously and ponder about, in order that he should always end up doing the right thing. It is very easy, unfortunately, for a person to lose track not only of time, but of himself. And even though he may have started off on the right path, he had a good upbringing with good parents, he went to a good school, it could happen that he goes off the derech, he goes off the path. You know, on the freeway we have those little things between the lanes that in case you're falling asleep, they remind you that you're going off the lane. So man always needs reminders, man always needs to stay focused, otherwise he forgets. He forgets even that which he knew once upon a time. He can forget that too. So Mishnah Bet speaks a little bit more, elaborates a little bit more on this derech that we spoke about in Mishnah Aleph. But this Mishnah is being said by the son. Rabban Gamliel beno shel Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi Omer, Yafa Talmud Torah, or Yafet Talmud Torah im derech eretz. He's speaking about doing different things in life. Let me tell you, he says, that it's so beautiful if you can have the combination of the two. That is, the learning of Torah with derech eretz. For those of you who are not aware, derech eretz can mean any one of three things. Derech eretz is sometimes a way of defining a profession, a job. That's called derech eretz, the way of the land. Derech eretz could also imply good character, good midot, like derech eretz kadma la Torah, right? And derech eretz could also mean the relationship between a husband and wife. So here, there are two opinions as to which derech eretz he's talking about. But let's begin with a simple understanding. The simple understanding of what he's saying is that it would be nice, it would be ideal, it would be optimal that one should have the two of them. What are the two? Talmud Torah, which means continuous learning of Torah, not that you've learned Torah and you've graduated. We don't graduate from learning Torah. So this is something that is constant, continuously, for the whole life, especially for men. Yafet Talmud Torah im derech eretz, with a profession. The two of them. What do you gain by having the two? Why not just have Torah? Why not just have derech eretz? What is so good and important about having the two? Sheyegiat shnehem meshakachat avon. If you preoccupy yourself, if you involve yourself, if you devote time to the two of them, they will have the tendency of letting you forget about committing a sin. Meshakachat means you won't have the time and energy to commit a wrongdoing. Because he says, Yegi'at shnehem. Yegi'ah means a person can learn Torah with Yegi'ah. In other words, he devotes a certain amount of time, and it involves effort. Going to shi'ur, sitting down, whether it's with chavruta or even by himself, it requires perhaps intense research as to what the halacha is. It could be yegi'ah. It could be a tremendous laborious act, the learning. It's not easy. Work, depending on the type of work he does, as long as it's not just sitting behind the desk with a phone, usually the average work involves some effort. And that also makes us tired. Come home, after a long day, you're tired between the driving, between going to work, coming back from work, and doing whatever it was. So this is a great piece of advice in that the combination of these two will have a very good effect on the individual. One of the effects is meshakachat avon. In other words, it will help us in staying away from trouble. This in some ways is a continuation from the past Mishnah, where the point was made, Ve'iyat abali de avera. His father also basically was concerned about that. A lot of things can happen to people who are good, who started out being good. Things happen. There are temptations in life, there are challenges, there's ups and downs. And that could lead people to commit all kinds of crimes, of sins. So if we have the two of them have the advantage of making us tired, making us busy. We're occupied between the two of them. And because one is busy and one is tired, that's simple. He won't really have the energy or the interest to commit a wrongdoing, or not as much. However, not to forget that the more important one of all is the Torah. Because when it comes to Averot, the Torah, Rabbi tells us, is a tavlin, it's a spice, it's an antidote that immunizes us, in a sense. It helps strengthen our immune system, that we should be able to do battle with the Yetzer Hara, which everyone has. Everyone has the Yetzer Hara. You can't escape it. There are different kinds of Yetzarim. There's different kinds of weaknesses that people have. But one who is involved in Torah has a better chance to be able to fight it. He strengthens himself. He recharges his batteries, his spiritual batteries. And there's no doubt, that one who has Torah will be able to defend himself better. Not only will he be focused and not have the time to search for trouble, he will actually be stronger in case inadvertently he has to face trouble. But getting back to derech eretz, the point that is being stressed over here is very clear. The rabbis look up to someone who earns a living through a profession. It's very clear. Greatest rabbis had a profession. whether it was a shoe repairman, whether it was water carrier, drawing water from the wells, whether it was wood chopper. What is that?
Sandler. Sandler.
Yeah, sandlar. Yeah, with the shoes. Exactly. All kinds. You see that in the Gemara. So, why is there a need to tell us that this is important? That this is something to look up to? Not only because that this will preoccupy you, not only because of that, a person who earns a living, a person who has a profession that he can rely on, he simply won't come onto relying on people, asking them, begging them for favors, for help. It's not a good thing, the rabbis tell us, to have to be dependent on others. It's not good. It's not a good habit in case you had second doubts about it. Oh, going to go on welfare. No. Well, no, welfare is no good. The system may be somewhat good for those who really are incapacitated, right? They cannot work. Yeah, you need some sort of system. The government should help support the people who cannot help themselves. But a person who's able, who's healthy, he should work. And therefore, the Chachamim said, by doing that, you will be relying on your own efforts. Plus, besides that, if you earn a living, you won't have to come to steal, chas v'shalom. One of the weaknesses, or one of the problems that can happen when one is unemployed, intentionally unemployed especially, when he doesn't want to work, is that he may, if he needs money, he may come to take it from others. Very, very simple. So in order to avoid all of that, work for a living, learn a trade. There are a lot of people, I'm sure, that are eager to ask the following question. Maybe not in this group, but I give this shiur to Israelis too, on another day of the week, and I'm sure they're going to jump at me. They're going to say, well, what about all those religious guys in Israel that don't want to go to the army, that don't want to go to work, and they sit and learn the whole day? And this is, of course, a question that comes up all the time. What about them? Israel today, in the 21st century, is in a very unique, unusual, I should say, situation. It is a country that was formed from the ashes of the Holocaust, basically. There's no doubt in my mind, and I think everybody sees it as well, that these are the days of Mashiach, that we are having a gathering of the diaspora, where Jews from all over the world are coming there. So it's becoming a big, big melting pot of different backgrounds, Jews with different backgrounds. And even though we don't care so much about Polish, Yemenite, Moroccan kinds of backgrounds, but the backgrounds that are the most different is religious versus secular. So you have this schism, I think the right word would be in English, right? Of two opposites that are fighting, are really fighting, whether it's consciously or subconsciously, for completely opposite ways of life. And as a result of this clash of cultures, you have all kinds of problems come up. Unintentional problems. With the army, with drafting religious boys to the army, where one of the problems is that the religious boys cannot be with women in the army. Simple. Lack of modesty. It's not that there's nothing wrong with going to the army. The Torah speaks about having an army. So that is already a problem that's set in motion like a domino effect other problems, where if you didn't want to go to the army, you sat and learned. Even though the boy who was sitting and learning is not really a learner, he's better off working, but he can't work because he didn't go to the army. You see what I mean? It's a catch, what do they call it in English? A catch, why 22? Why catch 22? What does 22 mean? Whatever. Anyway, it's a problem. You know, I just gave you a quick example. It's a little deeper than that. Learning is beautiful. Learning is important. Eretz Israel today is involved in a big project, rebuilding the Torah that was destroyed in Europe. There's no doubt in my mind that Mi'ashamayim, Hashem wanted that there should be a lot of kolelim, where the young generation who's not as strong as the previous generations needs to continue to learn into their 20s and into their 30s sometimes. Am Yisrael needs Gdolim B'Torah, leaders of Torah. So there's no doubt that there needs to be an emphasis on Torah. Even if it requires tremendous self-sacrifice, no work, and the family is just barely making ends meet. Yes, to an extent. But where do you draw the limit? When you begin to go to work, especially if you don't have a degree, what are you going to do? You didn't go to college, you didn't learn a trade because of the army, because of that. You see what I mean? So everything is really messed up. The country, as much as Baruch Hashem, Hashem has a plan over here that is bringing it to fruition, the country in some ways is messed up. It is. It's just messed up in various ways. And I don't like to speak too much about the negative because I love to speak only about the positive. So there's a lot of good things happening in Eretz Yisrael, but we have to be aware that this is a process that never really matured. It never matured. And because it never matured, we have problems. Yes, that some people are not working, that they should be working. How do we get them to work? We have to think together for ideas on how to make it so that the Torah does not suffer, of course, and that those that need to work find a job that will restore their dignity to themselves and to their families. So that's why this Mishnah is an important Mishnah, because we need to understand, yes, it is good, it is healthy, it is the proper approach to life that a Jew should have both Torah and Derech Eretz, with a few exceptions of those who are rabbis and judges and dayanim, right, that are involved completely, as we will see towards the end, in community. They can be in the community, work without some other profession. The importance of a profession, other than money, other than staying out of trouble, is that it gives the individual, it endows the individual with responsibility, direction, and stability. Very, very important that a person have those items in his life. It's therefore, to not have a job means to have no stability, no direction. And what happens when an individual has no stability or direction? He can go crazy. It could lead to depression, to a lack of self-esteem, or as we call it in Hebrew, tiskul. Tiskul, frustration, and animosity even towards others, towards himself, as a result of this frustration. The second pirush, however, of Derech Eretz is that this Derech Eretz is talking about midot. Midot means good character. How does that fit in over here? It fits in very well. What good is it if a person learns a lot, knows a lot, is very knowledgeable in Torah, but doesn't have good character? So Yafeh Talmud Torah in Derech Eretz, person who's learned, but he also strives and makes efforts to refine his character, to develop good character, good traits. That is good. That is beautiful. Because what good is it a person who's very, very scholarly, very knowledgeable in Torah, but misbehaves, does not have manners? Derech Eretz means good midot, good manners. How does that eliminate sin, or how does that prevent sin? Because Torah by itself may not prevent sin. If a person has a real bad character, how is he going to overcome it? Torah helps, we said before, but it's not a guarantee. But if a person understands that the source of his problems lies in dealing with some very, very difficult midot, like anger or stinginess, so he learns Torah. Torah says give tzedakah, but he doesn't want to. He's a miser. He's stingy. It's hard for him. You see? So the Torah tells you, but you need to. It's good. The reward and everything. Yeah, but his nature. So it requires effort. One needs to work on midot. A person who does not work on midot is going to have trouble, whether it's at home or outside. Not getting along. Nobody's going to like him if he always, imagine somebody who's always bitter, always complains, always has something negative to say, criticizes. Who wants to be his friend? Right? But there are people who have that kind of a nature. There are people who are ungrateful. No matter what you do for them, they're always, not happy. I'm sure everyone here knows people like that. They exist in society, in every generation, and almost in every family. There are people who are difficult people, difficult family members, difficult relatives. How do you deal with them? So anyway, you sometimes can't help them because they can't help. They're not willing to help themselves. So here, Rabbi Gamliel is reminding us they really go together. Derech Eretz Kadma Torah comes before the Torah, but it would be beautiful for a Talmid Chacham to have developed good character too. The combination of the two, Meshakachat Avon. It is through a combination of having the two of them that one will be able to deal better, more effectively with pituyim, temptations, nisyonot, challenges, with all kinds of matzavim, all kinds of situations where he couldn't predict them. But because he worked on himself, because he learns Torah, all of a sudden he's faced with a big dilemma. Somebody is suing him in court, right? And he's very upset. Because I'm going to show him, I'm going to teach him a lesson, right? He wants to take revenge. He wants to do something nasty because of that, right? If he doesn't have good midot, doesn't have Torah, he may do that and get himself into more trouble. So the combination of Torah with Derech Eretz, in this case, the meaning is midot tovot, is also a very, very good combination that helps one deal with the difficult challenges in life. The Mishnah goes on to say, "B'chol Torah she'en ima melacha." If you have Torah that does not have melacha, you see from the word melacha here, you understand that that's what he was talking about. Derech Eretz meaning melacha. If the Torah does not have some sort of other occupation with it, so fa betela, in the end, the person will stop learning because he's going to have to need money. V'goreret avon, and he will come to sin. So the Chafetz Chaim says, imagine the Mishnah is telling us that Torah without work could lead one to trouble. The more so, he says, melacha without Torah. If Torah without melacha, without work, can be goreret avon, can lead one to sin and cause him to fall and make mistakes, kol sheken, the more so, if a person all he does is work and not learn Torah. Of course, it could easily happen. It can happen in the street, whether it's not eating kosher, whether it's cheating, whether it's lying, whether it's starting up with someone you shouldn't start up with, relationships, things like that, all because of the temptations of life. They're sweet. What's something that is tempting? Sweet. It's tempting. It's attractive. It looks good. It feels good. Yeah. But without Torah and Derech Eretz, it's what are the chances that a person will be strong? Very, very little, because even if he is strong, he may not be strong enough. He may not be able to resist. And if there's no Torah, he may not even know that what he's doing is wrong. Some people just allow themselves all kinds of things. They see that the Goyim do it. Why not do it? So without Torah, it's even worse. Anyway, it's the combination of the two that are very, very helpful, because Torah, in the end, together with Derech Eretz, mashpi'a ala ma'asim. That is what influences our deeds. In order to build character, in order to control ourselves, we need the Torah that gives us the direction. When to be upset, when not to be upset. When to show it, when not to show it. How much tzedakah to give. Who to give to, who not to give, when to criticize, who to criticize. There's halachot, there are details in this. So the Torah shows us how to go about it. The Torah encourages us to develop midot. The Torah is the one that tells us, kedoshim tiyu, be holy. What does being holy mean? Not only with that which is prohibited for you, stay away, but even that which is permissible, don't overdo it. That's great discipline. Don't overeat, don't exaggerate. So here we have tremendous amount of good advice, good midot, that is taught to us by the Torah. So the Torah, the learning of the Torah, is not only knowledge, it's not only mitzvah, it actually affects our ma'asim. It actually builds us. It actually influences us. That is the meaning of what Am Yisrael said, Na'aseh v'nishma. Remember that? The key words, na'aseh v'nishma, we will do and we will listen, which was very, very interesting because who does before he listens? Let me first hear what you have to tell me, then I'll make up my mind if I want to go ahead and do it. Am Yisrael was so convinced that this is the emet. They recognized the miracles, they recognized that Hashem is the boss. They had no hesitations. They went for it. Na'aseh v'nishma, we'll continue to hear whatever you want to tell us in the future too. That was a very, very special way of expressing one's commitment, now and in the future. Na'aseh v'nishma, however, also corresponds to what we're talking about, Talmud Torah im derech eretz. Learning is not enough, you have to be meyasem. Meyasem what you learn. Meyasem means to carry out. There's another word for it. Leyasem, you're learning something and now you want to put it to work. To implement it. That's the word I was looking for. To apply. But the correct translation, leyasem, is to implement. So it's not enough that which we learn. It's great, that's the first step, but you want to implement it. Na'aseh v'nishma. So this na'aseh v'nishma reminds us that everything that we learn is for a purpose. That ultimately we want to do something with it, for ourselves and of course for the klal, for the community as a whole. What's interesting is that the commentators explain that na'aseh v'nishma is also insinuated in the tefillin shel rosh and tefillin shel yad. We just finished saying that na'aseh v'nishma corresponds to Torah im derech eretz, to the learning, to the nishma, and to the na'aseh, right? To the derech eretz, to the actual doing. You see that in the tefillin too. The men put on two sets, or I should say two parts of a set, right? The tefillin shel rosh and the tefillin shel yad, the one that we place on our arm, the one that we place on our forehead, the top of the head. What do they correspond to? Well, the head is the nishma. The yad is the na'aseh. You see? So we have the thoughts, the learning, the absorption of the Torah, but guess what? Hashem says, I want you to also do, not just to learn. Judaism is a religion or a way of life that it requires deeds, not just learning. And we're reminded about this through a very important halakha. When you take off your tefillin in the morning, which one comes off first, the hand or the head?
The head.
The head, right? Why not the hand? Why take off the hand first? That's the one you first put on. Why do we just undo the finger? Then we remove the head, and then we remove the last one, the hand. And one it went on first, take it off first. The rabbis explain that tefillin shel rosh cannot be there alone without the shel yad. Tefillin shel rosh cannot be on the head alone without having tefillin shel yad. Therefore, we have to take off the shel rosh first, so that the shel rosh should not be alone. The shel yad can remain alone, but the shel rosh cannot be alone. Why? What's one explanation? Because learning is not enough. Torah on the head by itself is not enough. You need the shel yad. You need a hand. You need actions. You need to implement, to apply that which you learn, to put it to work. Judaism is about doing things, not just learning about them. So you can't have the shel rosh on without the shel yad. To remind us that you need the shel yad all the time. You need to be able to do what you learned. I think this is a beautiful way of explaining it. Last part of this Mishnah, very, very significant. Even though the first part is significant too, but this is very interesting because it deals with a very, very different area in life. A very unique area called Avodah Matzibur. We just finished saying how important it is to choose a career, to have the right path, a derech that complies with certain important criteria. a profession, the benefits of it. And now he tells us, what about those that do not have a profession? And they don't need to have a profession because they are involved in a very, very important task. What's that task? To be dealing with the tzibur. They are people of the community, askanim, rabbanim, and so forth. V'chol ha'amelim im hatzibur. I have some advice for them too. Those that do not have a derech eretz, in other words, they do not have a profession, they have good character, but they don't have a profession. They are amelim im hatzibur. What they need to keep in mind is, you amelim imahem l'shem shamayim. They should be very, very careful. Tremendous emphasis here is put on these words, l'shem shamayim. You don't see this anywhere else. They? What about everybody else? Shouldn't do the l'shem shamayim? Of course, everybody should do everything l'shem shamayim. But here, the emphasis is dafka, people who deal with tzibur. Tzibur could mean anything that has to do with community. You are a leader of a community. You are preparing something for the community. You don't have to be a rabbi, but you're doing something that affects the community. You're building a mikveh for the community, a shul, anything that has to do that affects the community is called ha'amelim im hatzibur. But especially those that do so on a regular basis. This is a very, very delicate area. Delicate. Because the tzibur, you have all kinds of people that you're going to be meeting and getting to know. All kinds of situations. Community work is not easy. Make sure you do it l'shem shamayim. Why is it so important l'shem shamayim? Well, we said before that in order for a person to avoid coming lidei avon or lidei avera, he has to be careful that he should have Torah in derech eretz, right? That he has to think about certain things to remind him. All with the goal of what? Of staying away from Averot. So here we have an opportunity, or I should say, a situation where it is very easy for people to get carried away to do the wrong things. Very, very easy. Anybody who's involved with community, anybody who's involved with big projects, with lots of money, easily can come to Avirah. So therefore, his advice in relating to those individuals on how they should stay away from committing a wrong is make sure whatever you do, l'shem shamayim. If anybody does what he does for the sake of heaven, if that's what his intention is, and he's strong about that, that will help him a great deal. Tremendous, tremendous. As long as he means it, as long as he's sincere. L'shem shamayim is not easy. Why not? Because people have interests. Oh, this is great. Great opportunity to make some money. Money, money, money. A lot of people go crazy with money. What's this money thing? It's a golden calf. It's like avodah zarah. What people are willing to do for money is incredible. For another $100 even. It's incredible. So therefore, amelim hatzibur, make sure you amelim imahem l'shem shamayim. Now, there are people who don't want to work with the tzibur. They have cold feet. They hesitate. Hem nirta'im, as we say in Hebrew. They would rather not. Why not? Because they realize that this involves tremendous responsibilities, perhaps hardships, commitments, all kinds of responsibilities that they don't want to take upon themselves. That maybe this is not good for them, challenging. So he's speaking to them too, to those group of people who have second doubts about whether they should do this kind of a job. He says like this: not only is this avodah that should be done l'shem shamayim, it is a beautiful and very important avodah. You know why? Don't be afraid. If you do it l'shem shamayim, shezchut avotam mesayatan v'tzidkatam omedet le'ad. The merit of their forefathers will be with them, will support them. V'tzidkatam, and their righteousness will last forever. These are words that are a little bit difficult to understand. What is he talking about over here? Go ahead and do the melacha, do it l'shem shamayim, and you know what? I have something else to tell you. that the zechut of the forefathers, whose forefathers, will help you out. And not only will the zechut help you out, their merit, their righteousness lasts forever. Whose righteousness? Whose merit? He's reminding us that a person who's involved in the community, doing for the cloud, doing for people, he has many, many zchuyot that will be there for him through those efforts, that will protect him and that will make his efforts succeed. He's not alone. Don't worry. Nothing to be worried about. If you do it l'shem shamayim, of course, if you do it l'shem shamayim, that's the key here. You know what? You will receive a special siyua meleman, a special help from shamayim that will help you. You're not alone. What's that help from? Where is it coming from? It's coming from the merits of your forefathers. What do they have to do with this? Merits of one's forefathers, especially certain merits, are lasting forever. Tzidkatam omedet la'ad. If they were righteous and good people and devoted, you think they're gone? Yeah, physically they're gone, but their merits or their zchuyot or their tzidkut is still around. And when you involve yourself in acts that are so benevolent and so good for the community, you are combining your acts, your efforts, your koach with their koach, with their devotion, their mesirut nefesh. And that combination of the two is very powerful. It's effective. In other words, you're no longer alone. The point here is one receives assistance from Shamayim. And what assistance? It's not just assistance. It's the zechuyot of one's forefathers, or according to the second interpretation, this Mishnah is the zechuyot, the merits of the forefathers of this tzibur. In other words, generations back, you have their merits, their mitzvot, their devotion combining with your koach. So that will be there to protect you, that will be there to help you. But I think, humble opinion, I think that there is really, really something very special that I didn't see anybody say. And I wonder, how could they miss this point? There's such a beautiful, beautiful little point here in these words that how could anybody miss it? Do you know what the Tanai is telling us, Rabban Gamliel? For those of you who have doubts about whether to be involved in the community, whether to do things for people, let me tell you something. Rabbi Gamliel says, if you do it l'shem shamayim, you know what's going to happen? Tzidkatam omedet la'ad. Anybody who does something for the community, those ma'asim that were done are everlasting. It's not that you've done something now and it goes into your bank account upstairs. When you affect people's lives and you help them, community, their mitzvot, their kids' mitzvot, their grandchildren mitzvot, for many, many generations, that tzidkatam omedet la'ad, you get the credit for it because you started it. That's how great this is. Don't forget this, he says. You have this zchut avot helping you out. That's the past. Plus, the tzidkatam omedet la'ad. In the same way that their tzidkut lasts forever, tzidkut lasts. There is such a thing as zchut avot, right? So will yours, especially if you're working with the tzibur. That continues on forever. And you're wondering, why is he telling this to us? It's not only because of the importance of this work. It's not only because of that. It's because of the next few words. There are people who, because they get so involved in community affairs, they don't have time to do other mitzvot. So the Tanakh tells us, you're going to feel bad that you did not accomplish anything. There's two pirushim in those words too. And you, who are concerned about what you're doing, whether you will succeed or not, the first interpretation is, simple interpretation is, don't worry. All the tzidkut, or all the zechuyot of your forefathers, they are there to help you, but you get the credit. Atem ma'ale ani alechem sachar harbe ki'ilu asitem. as though you would have done it. What does that mean? The grandchildren, as we just said, they did it on their own. Yeah, but you got started. You're the one that set it in motion. So the first pirush is that this tzidkut that lasts forever, it is because it's as though you would have done it yourself. The second pirush, is for those who are concerned, but what about everything else I could have done? I could have done this, and that, but I was busy. Hashem says, I will include that too, as though you would have accomplished it. As though you would have done that too. In other words, you will not be deprived. Just because you were busy here does not mean, oh, I'm going to blame you for not doing something else. No, it is as though you did it. But there's one more thing that one can add over here. And this is based on the Chafetz Chaim. The Chafetz Chaim said a very important, very true point. In Yiddish, it goes like this: Medaf ton, medaf nicht auf ton. One does not have to be concerned about what will he accomplish. He has to be concerned about doing. He says, one needs to do, not to accomplish. What's the difference? When we do, we're not sure whether we will succeed or not. But do. It's not your responsibility on what the outcome of your actions will be. You try your best to do a mitzvah, to do a favor to someone, to help them. That's right. You fulfilled your obligation. But it didn't help. You try to bring a husband and wife back together. You worked so hard, day and night on the Shalom Bayit, and after so much work, tears and sweat, they still get a divorce. Now what? Chafetz Chaim says, you can't worry about that. Medaf ton, medaf nish of ton. Just do. That's what we got to do. To do. To accomplish, to actually make a difference, that's up to Hashem. He will determine whether your actions will succeed or not you. You have to do. So this point is also pretty much included in these last words. Hashem says, I consider your thoughts. I consider your kavanot. I consider all your efforts. As though you did it. As though you succeeded, even though you may not have succeeded. That could also possibly be what he's saying. So either he tells those who are worried about their ma'asim, don't worry. The ma'asim that you could have done, I will consider it as though you did it. Or the simple pirush, the first pirush, that your deeds are so great that they last forever. Because even the third and fourth and fifth generations, what they do is as though you did it. And that is what the rabbis mean. Bagadol ha'me'aseh, yoter min ha'oseh. Greater is the one that gets others to do charity than the one who does charity himself. Gadol ha'me'aseh. Greater is the one that causes others to do more than the one who does himself. One who does himself, kol hakavod, yefeh me'od, very nice. He who encourages and gets others to do it, he's greater. He took the time and the effort to go and encourage more than one person. That means he got more people to do it. That's greater than having done it himself, one person. How could you compare? So here is a Ish Sibur who's getting so many people to do hopefully the right thing. But it has to be done L'Shem Shamayim. The condition here is L'Shem Shamayim. If you do L'Shem Shamayim, there's so much going for you. So much help. So much zechuyot and everlasting zechuyot. Last Mishnah for today, Mishnah Gimel. Hevu zehirim bareshut, be very careful with politics and politicians. And some of you may recall that that's a similar Mishnah to what we learned in Pirkei Aleph, and I'll talk a little bit about it soon. Same Rabban Gamliel is telling us, take it from me, I have experience. This is all from experience. Plus, this is Torah min hashamayim. Right? What they're saying is not something new. It's just to remind us of certain things that we sometimes forget. Hevu sehirim should be careful with politicians. Be careful with government officials. She'en mekarvim lo le'adam ela letzorech atzman. When they want to befriend you, it's because they need your vote. Because they need you. Letzorech atzman. That is why they are getting close to you. That is why they smile to you. That is why they come to dinner, you know. נראים כאוהבים בשעת הנאתן, they may appear to be like your friends when they are benefiting from you. But when you need them, guess what? ואין עומדים לו לאדם בשעת דוחקו. They will not be there for you when you are in need of them. So when they need you, guess what? All smiles. When you need them, they won't be there for you. Is this something new? We all know that, but we forget. Now, why is he telling this to us? What does this have to do with anything? I mean, this is very different than what we just finished saying. Besides the fact that we already saw this before. We saw this in Pirkei with Shmaya. Remember Shmaya Naftalion? Shmaya is the one that said that. Al titvada ala reshut. Be careful not to become too friendly, too cozy with authorities. It's not a good idea. The relationship with them is not 100%. Here, he's warning us for a different reason. Here he's not telling us, don't get too involved with the authorities, like Shmaya says, stay away from it. Here, he uses different words. Be careful. Be careful. Say the same thing Shmaya said. Stay away from them. No. You're an ish tzibur, remember? We're talking about now, in some ways it's a continuation. You're a man that works in the community. You may be a rabbi, you may be a leader of some sort. You may have to come on to a senator. You may have to ask for favors. You may have to get them to do something for the community. Of course, we're not hermits. I mean, unfortunately, sometimes we have to ask them. And sometimes we have to really, beg them and bribe and do whatever we can to get their attention. So therefore, to those people and those situations, he tells them, yes, but when you do go, hevu zeherim, be careful with them. Because you can't trust them. Very simple. So he's just telling us, be careful what you promise. Be careful what you commit. Be careful before you embark on a project that you've really considered everything, including the fact that they're going to possibly disappoint you, let you down. And here you're about to invest a lot of money. So, right? Tzibur. Tzibur means a lot of money. Tzibur means all kinds of problems, all kinds of challenges. And especially if you involve politicians, uncertainty, lack of reliability. So be careful with them. Why is there such unreliability with the reshut? He looks such a nice gentleman. He has a tuxedo with a tie and he combs his hair. And he drives a nice car. And he has a master's degree in business management. Why should he be no good, unreliable? Why? Anybody want to guess? He's a gentleman. He really is. He's not a faker. I'm not talking about fakers. He's a gentleman. He's nice, decent person. You know him for years. Do people change just like that? Yes. What's the reason?
It's not the man, it's the system. The system changes the man.
Oh, yeah. That's part of the answer. It could be that he was decent before, but now he's not. What? People change just like that? Yeah, sometimes. Not everyone. Right? People don't just change like that. People, hopefully, if they have principles, right? They are strong, they have values.
Even
right?
if they have values.
What is that?
Even if they have values.
No. Hopefully, yeah, you're right.
It's geared in a way that if you're going to survive, if you're going to be successful as a politician, you have to sell your soul. You have to give in.
Not always. Yeah, you're right. A lot of people fall because not everybody is strong enough to resist the system. Like you said it very nicely. The system. It's a system that really corrupts people. So a person was not corrupt before, I guess now he is corrupt. Because what? But why? What's in the system that makes people corrupt? Very simple. One of the things that makes people corrupt in politics is kavod. Honors. He wants to be reelected. He wants this position. He doesn't want to be kicked out if he does the right thing. He wants to do what the system says. He wants to be okay with the system, with his fellow politicians, or with the prime minister, or whatever it is. There are people, but there are few, who are not corruptible. What does Hashem tell Moshe? What does Yitro first tell Moshe? And Hashem agrees with Yitro. In choosing judges, Anshe Chayil, Yireh Elokim, Sonei Batza, people who hate money, people who are not crazy for money, people who are God-fearing, people who are strong. What do you mean strong? Muscles? No, not that kind of strength. Strong with the Yetzer Hara. You can't frighten them. That's the kinds of people we need, but we don't have that many of those. There are few like that. There are people like that, but very, very few. Very few. The vast majority was either corrupt all along or has become corrupt because of the system. Therefore, when you're involving yourself with reshut, as we say in Arabic, dir balak, in other words, be careful. Don't get too cozy, too comfortable with them, because they're not predictable, they're not reliable. And at the end, you will be very, very disappointed. The best way to understand this, or to see this, is with somebody who became very wealthy. The wealthy, everybody wants to be their friends, right? Everybody, how are you? How are you? How are you? What can I do for you? Anything you want. They want to be his friend. Okay? And they're his friend for a while. All of a sudden, this rich guy lost all his money. What do you think is going to happen to all those friends?
Leave. They're going to live.
Bye-bye. All those friends. But they were friends. They were never friends to begin with. They're a bunch of fakers. They wanted his money. They didn't want his friendship. Yeah, there's a lot of English-American slang on how to describe what these people are doing to the rich man. I'm not gonna repeat it. It's worse than chaplusi. It's worse than just plain flattery. There's a worse word for it. Another more negative connotation. That it's not real. It's not real. It's just, make-believe. So here he's telling us, okay, so what do we do? What I'm telling you, he says, is don't forget. Remember I started off telling you L'Shem Shamayim? Do things L'Shem Shamayim? These people, if you're going to be involved with politics, don't forget who the real boss is. Turn to him. Pray to him. Ask him. On him you can rely, not on them. So that's ultimately what he's trying to convey over here. That a person should be very, very careful, right, from doing things not l'shem shamayim, because that's what politicians do. You want to know the real reason, the bottom line of why they are corrupt? Because they don't do l'shem shamayim, and I'm asking you to do l'shem shamayim. Politicians don't do l'shem shamayim. They have an agenda. They have interests. That is where the big difference lies. So you're right. It's the system. But what's the problem with the system? They look for kavod. They look for interests, for agendas, for personal favors. It's not l'shem shamayim. When a person does not do l'shem shamayim, he can easily become corrupt, easily become tempted. Yes?
So you mentioned before, Rabbi, the analogy that the Rabbanim, some of them say that I don't want the honey and I don't want the bee sting. Right. Can the individual say, it's great to serve the community, but this is not something for me?
That's what he's talking about here. That ultimately, he encourages people who are capable to get involved because of the great mitzvah and the big sachar rav, sachar arbe that is awaiting him. That is a tremendous, tremendous chut, because this is called zikui harabim. Zikui harabim is one of the biggest mitzvot. One of the biggest mitzvot is to be mezakeh rabim, if you can, in some ways do it. Right.
Even if the person has doubts?
Imagine if somebody buys sidurim free for Bet Knesset, machzorim. Mm-hmm. They didn't have enough. You know what zechut it is that everybody's praying from that machzor? He did something for the shul, for the community. Right? That's a small example, but it's Leilu Nishmat, or whatever it is, for himself or Leilu Nishmat. It's a beautiful, easy ma'aseh did, zikui rabim. Or you brought somebody to a class. If you bring people to a class, not because of my class, a class, and he learned one thing, or he changed something in his life, you get the credit for it. And this credit is, we have no idea how great this mitzvah is, because his children, grandchildren perhaps, and future generations will be affected because of that one maaseh. So that's why he encourages and tells us how great the reward will be for even a small maaseh in future generations. Anyway, so he basically finishes up over here this Mishnah by telling us how unreliable politicians are, and therefore be very careful not to become too cozy with them. Depend on Hashem, and remember that in the end, everything depends on what Hashem wants anyway. So don't be disappointed if they don't comply with your requests and they disappoint you, because in the end, nothing is new under the sun, right? As the Shlomo says, I could have told you so before, but if you prepare yourself and you trust in Hashem and you do L'Shem Shamayim and you don't rely on them, then you won't be disappointed. Now comes the greatest news of all, but that I'm saving for next week. Well, actually, maybe not next week, because next week we may have something on Shavuot. So maybe after Shavuot, we'll see. And that will be a piece of advice that he tells us in the next Mishnah that people are not too familiar with. And what can I do, or is there anything I can do to get politicians to do what I want? Anything I want. Is there anything I can do, besides the Shem Shamayim, of course, is there anything I can do that will hopefully help me more than anything else in the world? What's the key? I need a key, a master key, that can open up the hearts of people, not just politicians, everybody. Is there such a key? And that key is going to give to us in the next Mishnah. But that we'll cover next time. The point that we need to know right now, for now, besides the L'Shem Shamayim of how important it is to do things L'Shem Shamayim, is that the first point of what he told us, that Yafet Talmud Torah Derech Eretz, he started off with Talmud Torah. And not only did he start with Talmud Torah is mentioned before too, ala Torah, ala Avodah, Gelut Chasadim. It's so important. What's the importance of Torah? Whether in dealing with politicians or in dealing with tzibur, because Torah, people forget, is not just a body of knowledge. It's not just a compilation of mitzvot. Torah is being emphasized over here because in the end, we want to always do the right thing. So not only is Torah yafeh im derech eretz because of what it does for me, as far as the Yetzer Hara is concerned, for what it does for me, as far as my direction is concerned. The importance of this Torah is because of the difficulties of life, the challenges, the ups and downs, the temptations, and all the issues that can come up, whether it's with politicians or tzibur, is that if I do things according to the Torah, then hopefully I will be doing things correctly. Because the Torah is milashon hora'ah, more derech. It will direct me. If I do things using my head, my experience, my mind, what I think, or what others think, maybe, maybe not. You don't know for sure if you're right or wrong. You may be making a mistake because we're not always objective. Torah is in the end is what we need to be able to guide us. How do we approach this problem? How do we deal with this issue? When do we give in? When do we not give in? What is right and what is wrong? How do we know? The Torah is for all times. It's for all generations. It's not like the American Constitution that these senators and congressmen are changing every Monday and Thursday. Mm-hmm. Today, 2 men can get married, according to the president himself. Did you hear that? Yeah. So the presidents who are in the grave now are turning over. That's not what we had in mind for this country. But guess what? They don't have Torah. They have a constitution that is changeable. It's made by humans. And humans now are different. They changed. But the Torah does not change. If we live by the Torah, go by the Torah, make decisions by the Torah, we will be making, B'ezrat Hashem, the right decisions.